Welcome! I'm so glad you're here. I'm Gila Ross, parenting educator and coach, author of Living Beautifully and host of the Confident Parent podcast, bringing you the content you need to bring more ease, joy and love into your parenting so that you can show up as the parent you want to be to your children. Anyone here has experienced sibling rivalry, either with your own siblings or with your own kids? Anyone?
I have with my sisters,
All right.
but not with my kids yet because obviously my youngest is still a baby, so it's still early days.
All right. Okay. Becca, what's your memories of the sibling rivalry with you and your sister?
Well, it was 4 girls in the house. Everything was a competition, especially like when it came to education and who was cleverer. And my dad always kind of, made us academic and we had to do well.
Just saying, I have a sister, and I remember like pulling hair and with Barbies or toys, and pulling them off each other. And I have 2 girls now who sometimes are the best of friends, and sometimes it's just a screaming match of she did this, she did that, well you did that first, and I'm getting my own back.
And for all the parents, Claire turned out okay, even after all the pulling of the hair. So there's hope for all of us. What I wanted to start with is I want to share a few different scenarios and kind of hear how you would handle it. Okay. So let's say your kids are old enough to come home from school, both of them. One of them comes home, let's call her Sandra, and she has a report card, and you open it up. That's what we call it in England, right? Report cards. Yes, and it's a glowing report card. She's got A's and she's got exceeding expectations. It's just amazing. And meanwhile, the younger brother, Mark, who is not as academic as Sandra, he's much more of the athletic, go out and play football and like to drag him in to do his homework. He has his report card and he hasn't even opened it, and he hears you sitting there and talking and looking at Sandra's and making comments about how wonderful it is, and he throws his report card envelope down and he says, Sandra's the genius, right? She's always got the A report card, and he storms out the room before he's even had a chance to take a look at it. Okay, that's scenario number 1. Scenario number 2 is it's supper time, and it's the kids' favorite supper. It's pizza and chips, and you serve out the pizza and the chips, and one of them, let's call her Sarah, looks at Sam's plate and says, you gave her more chips than you gave me, and bursts out crying. Meanwhile, you still have more chips in the front serving tray. Okay, that's scenario number 2. And in scenario number 3, you're putting your kids to bed, and it's lovely. You read them a story, you tuck them in, you give them one of them a kiss, and you say, I love you, sleep well. And she turns around to you and says, who do you love more, me or my sister? Okay, anyone wants to share, what would you do in scenario 1, 2, or 3?
Well, in scenario 3, I'd always use the same as what I've always said to my kids from, when they're babies. They know that I love them both the same. So I don't think, even if they did ask me that, I'd just be like, I love you both the same. So
thank you. That was beautiful. Any other responses to that, or any of the other scenarios?
With the one with the chips, I would say, finish what you got on your plate, and then I'll give you both more chips.
Okay.
Scenario number 1, with the report card, I'd just say that, everyone's different. Your sister, Sandra, is academically clever, but you have a lot going for you in other areas. And, it's not always about being academically clever, and just try and make them feel better. You're good in one area and she's good in another area. So it kind of doesn't matter.
All right, so you're raising a very good point. I especially liked what you said about making them feel better. And I want to get back to that in a minute. But before we do that, I want to take a step back and look at what is sibling rivalry? Where does it come from? What are the roots of it?
It's competing for your parents' attention.
Beautiful, beautiful, Becca. So it's if you think about rivalry, what is rivalry? It's when two people are competing for the same prize, right? Now, those of you that have been on the course, you'll know what is the ultimate prize for a child?
From your parents, valuable time from the parents.
I would say attention, right? Attention and energy from a parent, right? It doesn't even have to be, you know, a lot of time. And I think that's what I've tried to sort of explain over the course, is that it doesn't have to be sitting down and spending a half an hour with a child. You can just weigh in with them and say, wow, I see that you're enjoying that book. Wow, I see that you gave your brother a toy. That shows me how kind you are. Like, which takes what? 30 seconds, 15 seconds. It doesn't have to be huge segments of a time, but it's our attention, it's our energy that is the ultimate prize. So sibling rivalry, the truth is, goes all the way back in time, right, to the very first pair of siblings, which was Cain and Abel, where they both brought a sacrifice to God, and one was accepted and one wasn't, and it ended in the first murder. So if you ever think your kids are at each other, you should know it's been way worse. The other thing to bear in mind is that for us as parents, and again, for those of you that have witnessed your children fighting, how does it make us feel?
Angry.
Angry, yes. Any other words?
Sad.
Disappointed.
I feel like we've failed in some way.
Jinx there, hey? Yes, we feel like we've failed. Like, all I want is my kids to get on well with each other. I want them to love each other. I want them to be best friends forever. And here they are at each other's throats for like looking at each other or whatnot, right? We may feel disbelief. We may even admit it, you know, if we're honest with ourselves, we may dislike the child that is the offender, right? It can raise very, very, very strong feelings within ourselves. So let's step back and try and understand it. So there's a well-known, and you may have heard it again, so I'm just going to rush through it, analogy that's told. Like, imagine you're married and the husband comes home and says, I love you so much, I decided I want to bring home another wife. How does that make you feel? Now think about it. When we tell our children, I love you so much, we're going to give you a sibling. A child wants everything from the parent. They want the totality of a parent's attention and energy. And the sibling, the new sibling, or if the sibling, it doesn't only have to be from the older sibling to the younger sibling. It can be from the younger sibling to the older sibling too. And if you have more than two kids, it can be from kid number 2 to kid number 3. It can work all the way. But children understand that it is very, very natural and normal for there to be sibling rivalry. So I think that is the first understanding that we as parents have to do, is when we work through those feelings, right? When we feel disappointed and upset and we feel like we've failed, and we may feel like we don't like that kid that's just hurt the other sibling, or the kid that's like vying for our attention in such unhealthy ways, is the first step is to turn and say, hold on, I'm not a failure, this is upsetting, but this is normal, right? So how do we deal with it? So let me start by asking you a question. We want to help our children manage their feelings, right? Manage their strong feelings which come with sibling rivalry, and we want to give them messages. So what are the messages that we want to convey to our children surrounding sibling rivalry? And it doesn't have to be the message that we get them right there in the moment, but what are the messages that we want to convey to them?
I don't know if this is one, but I always say to my kids, I say, in life, you're going to realise that you're best friends and you've only got each other, and you always have to protect each other.
Okay, so you're saying one of the messages, and there's no right or wrong answers, because it's the messages that you want to convey to your children. I mean, we could say there are better or worse answers, because if a parent wants to say that the message I want to convey is that kid X is my favorite and kid Y is my second favorite. That's a less good answer. But to Becca's aunt, wants to communicate to her children that to always look out for each other. Okay, that is a very strong value that you want to pass on to your children. Anyone else?
To be kind to each other and to care for each other, similar to what Becca said.
Kind and caring. Okay. Now, if we're going back also to the feelings that we said that the children may have, are there any messages that we want to communicate to them around that?
It's okay to have different emotions and different feelings, but it's how you go about it. So I say, please don't hit your sister. If there's something that she's done that's annoying to you, call me and I'll help you.
So Lindsay, would it be fair to say that you want to teach them the correct way to deal with conflict? Yeah, better ways to deal with conflict?
Yes, with their emotions and the actions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? I think Becca said something earlier about that we love them equally, or is that a message that we may want to convey to our children?
Yeah.
Okay. We want them to feel equally loved. Okay. Yeah. Nikki?
We always tell the oldest one that the baby loves her, so that she knows that she's important from the baby's perspective, if that makes sense.
That is a great parenting tip for you know, when you have an older one and a baby, and you tell them, oh, the baby loves you, and the baby's not old enough to say no or whatever, and the kid feels amazing, right? And you're setting them up for success. So that is a great one. If we go back to any of the three scenarios, is there anything else that we might want our children we might want to communicate to our children in these situations that sort of bring up the sibling rivalry? We want to teach our children that they are unique. They're not necessarily uniform, they are unique. I want to give a few ideas of what we want to do. So we've given lots of different messages of what we want to convey to our children, and what are the tools that we are going to use it. So the first tool that we're going to use, and this again is the tool in the book, is the tool number 4 of no one can hear unless they have been heard, right? So the first step, and this is something that I think we've spoken about, the first step before we want to get them to feel better is for them to feel heard, to turn to them. If you think back to the kid that storms out with the report card, is to say, it's really hard when your sister comes home with a glowing report card and you don't know what your report card's going to be, right? The first step that we want to do is we want to get into our child's mind a little bit and try and hear what it's going from. It's really annoying when your sister or your brother keeps disturbing your game. It's really upsetting when she keeps touching your stuff when they're special to you. That's the first thing that we want to communicate to our children, is that we can hear them. Nobody can hear anything until they have been heard. That's the first tool that we're going to be using. And then one of the other tools that tool number 4, which is unique, not uniform, creates greatness, right? And this, I think, is the real trick to sort of getting the sibling rivalry under control. And it's not, again, like anything else in parenting, it's not a quick fix. It's about, you know, valuing our children for what they are. Every single child, in fact, every person is supposed to say, Bishvil li nivra ha'olam. What does that mean? It means that every person is supposed to feel like the entire world was created for me. Now, this is not you drive down the road and say, everyone else get out of my way because the world was created for me. It's a responsibility. It's like, you are so precious to God. God would have gone through all the effort of creating the world just for you. And if you think about your children, the same is true. Each child is so precious in the eyes of God that God would have gone through all the trouble of creating the world just for them. Each person, really, they have a unique purpose. They have a unique mission in this world, and they are so precious in the eyes of God that that they're worth the entire world. And we see this again and again in Judaism. We're told that if someone saves a life, it's as if they've saved the whole world. And we want to communicate that to our children, that you are precious, right? Your unique abilities are precious. Your talents, your personality, all that is precious, because there's no one else quite like you. And the more we can sort of recognize them and energize their uniqueness and find what it is that's special about them, the more they are going to feel valued, and that will in turn decrease the sibling rivalry. I know that we've gone slightly over time, so my apologies for that. There is more to say on it, but it's going to have to be next session. But for this week, we've got 2 tools to take away and practice using this week. 2 very powerful tools. Tool number 1 is no one can hear until they have been heard. Stop whatever we're doing and just try and find a time just to listen and hear what they're saying and communicate with them. And number 2 is just to try and find what is special, what is unique, what is amazing about this particular child.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your feedback, your questions for future episodes. And please take a moment, think about someone else who might benefit from this and forward it on to them. If you enjoyed this podcast, you'll love my book, Living Beautifully, for more insights on how to bring meaning, joy, love into your life based on timeless Jewish wisdom. Thank you. Have a wonderful day, and please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out.